First, we have with us a Member of Parliament and now a candidate in the upcoming Maharashtra elections. But tonight he's joining me because of his deep association both with American politics and with the Trump family. He knows the Trump family very, very well. And so, Milind, thanks for taking time out from the campaign trail. You know the family. You know what they stand for. Are we expecting too much from Donald Trump in this term? Everyone's so enthusiastic about it. Why are we so enthusiastic about Trump?
Well, Arnab, firstly, thank you for having me on your show this evening. I have the good fortune of certainly of knowing President Donald Trump's son, Don Trump Jr. I have a good relationship with another senior man who fought as an independent initially in the presidential race and then supported President Trump, Robert Kennedy, RFK Jr. And I was hearing your introductory remarks, and I would say make a few comments. One is, my late father was one of the earliest proponents of stronger Indo-US ties back in the 80s when it was very, very inconvenient to be an Indian politician who wanted to deepen ties with the US. I remember him telling me how he worked across the aisle with Democrats like Steve Solars, Republicans like Larry Pressler, who initiated the Pressler Amendment, which prevented almost $5 billion of American aid going to Pakistan, and how difficult it was to convince people on the Capitol Hill that India is a natural political, cultural, social, economic ally. I do believe, number one, that regardless of who comes to power in America, and to be fair, what a government in India looks like, the Indo-US relationship is here to stay. The Indo-US relationship has also matured to a level where America is fully aware of our historic ties with countries like Russia. And in that sense, the relationship is now one of two good friends who've been friends for a long time, who trust each other, support each other. But having said that, I do agree with you that it would be wrong on anyone's part to assume that because there may be camaraderie between the two leaders, that certainly helps in any relationship, in any bilateral relationship. I do think that President Trump will ultimately look out for what is in America's interests. President Trump ultimately, don't forget, one of his biggest policies in 2016 when he became president was to reduce America's dependence on Chinese supply chains, on global supply chains, bring manufacturing back to America. That comes with a cost. That increases inflation in their country. It makes goods and services more expensive in America. But he did that because he felt it's important to create jobs in America and not to use the American consumption story to essentially subsidize the economies of China, if you will. Prime Minister Modi did the same thing in 2014. In fact, Prime Minister Modi, to his credit, did it 2 years before President Trump, when he announced the Make in India initiative. So I think what's very critical to note is that America will look out for its own interests. India will look out and must look out for its own interests. If those two interests converge, so be it. But there may be times, especially in the area of trade, where those relations may clash. However, I do believe, from a political point of view, from a strategic point of view, today our interests are aligned in the Indo-Pacific. Our interests are aligned for a free and fair Indo-Pacific, a South China, in terms of reducing the aggression with regards to what's happening in South China Sea. I can go a step further. As someone who serves on the board of the Arctic Circle, that the Arctic, Arnab, is the next frontier. Today, the whole world is focused on the South China Sea, but as ice is melting in the Arctic, new shipping routes are becoming available through the northern sea route over Siberia. Effectively, a ship can carry cargo from China to Europe in lesser days through the Arctic route, through the northern sea route, than it can through the traditional route of going through the South China Sea and eventually through the Suez Canal. So even in the Arctic, there is essentially some kind of confrontation building up, not just between America and Russia, but one of the biggest players in the Arctic today is China. It calls itself a near-Arctic state. And there's tremendous opportunities for us to cooperate there as well. So I think on the strategic side, I see great potential in the Trump Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji relationship that will certainly help us punch way beyond our weight. But on the economic side, I think we may see certain issues with regards to trade. And that's natural. Both of us should look out for our own interests.
Yeah, but okay, so just a quick follow-up on that before I let you go. Milind, what about Pakistan, Kashmir? You know, it was felt that Kamala Harris, the woke stance, would be very, very pro-Pakistan, anti-India, established positions on that. You think Trump is much more on our side on that?
Absolutely. I would say, to be very honest with you, not to wear a political hat, but to be completely honest here, I think that, Kamala Harris may have been a slightly between a center-left Democrat and a progressive Democrat. But I think President Joe Biden was a center-left Democrat. And President Joe Biden also understood real politics. He was very pragmatic about America's stance on these issues. But I certainly see with President Trump that woke culture of having to please certain constituents, even though they know it's wrong, even though they know it's not in America's strategic interest, even though it's actually inaccurate. What we see, for example, in Canada, that will not be something that we see under President Trump. So I think there will be real politics, there will be real relations based on factual issues. Wokeness will certainly die a natural death in America, I hope, for the long term and permanently. But I do believe that we will have a certain dispute here and there on trade, and I think that's natural. America has every right to look out for its national interests. We have every right to look out for ours.
Of course.
Mind you, there are many areas, Arnab, where America is competing directly with China, whether it's in space, whether it's in robotics, whether it's in quantum computing. But there are many areas where America and India are both looking out for their own interests, and essentially there could be a clash in the future. One very good example is semiconductor chips. To reduce America and India's dependence on Taiwan, both countries have some form of a chip act. America calls it a CHIPS Act. We have a PLI, production-linked incentive scheme, 10,000 crore rupees to encourage domestic production of wafer fabs and semiconductor chips. The same is true of artificial intelligence. America is a huge hub of artificial intelligence competing against China. They have huge companies like NVIDIA. But we are also using production-linked incentives to encourage data centers to be housed in India. So these are areas where you may see some competition on trade. But as I said, I do believe politically, when it comes to issues like Kashmir, and more importantly, strategically, all the way from the Indo-Pacific to the Arctic, we will see greater cooperation under Trump.
Wow. Thank you for making time from your campaign, and all the best for that election. You must be feeling very inspired today as well. Milind, thank you very much. I'd like to go to our panel now. We have Sohail Seth after a long time back on